Why you keep seeing 1111 during difficult times. The clock that keeps calling your name. You have been here before. Not in this video, not in this moment exactly. But in this feeling. The one sitting in your chest right now, the one that has no clean name, the one that arrives at 2 a.m. and does not leave when morning does. Something in your life is pressing against you. Something has not resolved. And no matter how many times you try to think your way through it, the weight remains. And then, the clock. 11:11. Again. You are not looking for it. That is the part that stays with you. You were not searching, not hoping, not waiting. You simply looked up. And there it was. Quiet, precise, unmistakable. And it has happened too many times now to be nothing. Your mind has its answer ready. It always does. Confirmation bias, pattern recognition, the brain finding what it is primed to find. And that explanation almost works. Almost. Except for one thing. The feeling that arrives with the number. That half second of stillness. That inexplicable sense that something, somewhere, just made contact. You cannot explain that part. And you have tried. What if the confusion is not a sign that you are lost? What if it is a sign that you are exactly where the shift begins? What if 1111 has not been appearing in spite of the difficulty you are moving through, but because of it? Because this moment in your life is not what it looks like from the inside. Because what feels like collapse has a different name when seen from a higher vantage point. By the end of this video, you will not just understand what 1111 means. You will feel, with a quiet and unshakable certainty, why it found you now. Why this particular number? This particular season? This particular you? The universe does not send signals to people who do not need them. You needed this one. When the universe refuses to be ignored. There is something the universe never does. It never shouts. It has no need to. It does not arrive with thunder or spectacle or the kind of disruption that forces you to your knees in obvious surrender. It works differently than that. It works with repetition, with timing, with the quiet, persistent knock of something that refuses to be explained away no matter how many times your logic tries to close the door. You have felt this. You know exactly what it is to brush something off once, twice, 3 times, and then arrive at the 4th time with a different feeling entirely. Not wonder exactly. Something closer to unease. The kind of unease that comes not from fear, but from the growing suspicion that you are being spoken to and have been choosing not to listen. This is how the universe communicates with a soul that has gone quiet inside its own noise. Not louder, more persistent. And there is a reason the persistence increases during the hardest seasons. Not in spite of the difficulty, because of it. The human soul, under pressure, becomes porous. The walls of ordinary certainty develop cracks, and through those cracks, something passes that cannot pass through solid, comfortable, undisturbed living. A frequency, a current, a contact. You think the difficult time arrived and then the signs began. But consider another sequence entirely. Consider that the signs began because the difficult time opened something in you that was previously sealed. That your pain, your confusion, your sleepless turning, these were not obstacles placed in front of a message. They were the very conditions that made you capable of receiving it. The universe has not been waiting for your life to calm down before reaching you. It has been reaching you through the storm, because the storm is the only thing that got you to finally look up. 1111 is not a comfort offered to someone suffering. It is a summons issued to someone standing at the edge of something they cannot yet name. There is a difference between those two things. Comfort asks nothing of you. A summons expects you to move. And somewhere beneath the exhaustion, beneath the questions that have no answers yet, beneath the version of yourself that is trying so hard to hold it all together, you already know that something is being asked of you. You have known it for longer than you have admitted. The signal has been consistent. The question now is whether you are ready to stop calling it coincidence and start calling it what it is. A conversation you were always meant to be part of. Something is being arranged on your behalf in the spaces you cannot see. The repetition is not random noise in a chaotic universe. It is precision. It is the intelligence behind what looks, from your vantage point, like disorder. And the fact that you are still here, still watching, still carrying the memory of every time that number appeared. That is not curiosity. That is recognition. The architecture of 11. Before a number becomes a sign, it is a structure. And the structure of 11 is unlike any other in the numerical universe. Most numbers are complete in themselves. They carry their meaning internally, resolved, contained. 11 does not work that way. 11 is two ones standing side by side, neither merging nor collapsing into each other. Two pillars, two columns of equal height, facing the same direction with space between them. That space, that precise, intentional gap, is not emptiness. It is a threshold. It is a doorway. And in virtually every mystical and sacred tradition that has ever mapped the invisible architecture of existence, the threshold is the most sacred space of all. In the ancient Hermetic tradition, the number 11 sits outside the completed cycle of 10. The Pythagoreans, who understood numbers not as quantities but as living principles, recognized 11 as the number that exists beyond the circle, the one that steps past completion into the unknown territory of what comes next. It is the number of the initiate, the number of the one who has finished one chapter and has not yet begun the next. If you are seeing 1111, you are seeing two thresholds mirrored against each other. Four ones, two doorways. A reflection of the self standing at a point of passage, being asked to cross. In numerology, 11 is a master number. It is not reduced. It is not simplified. It holds its tension without resolution because its purpose is not resolution. Its purpose is elevation. Where other numbers complete cycles, 11 opens them. It vibrates at a frequency associated with spiritual awakening, heightened intuition, and the activation of perception that goes beyond the five senses. People who are drawn to this number, or who see it repeatedly, are often in the midst of what ancient traditions would call an initiation, not a comfortable process, not a painless one, but a sacred one. Sacred geometry adds another layer to this. The number 1 in geometric terms is a vertical line, the axis between heaven and earth, the channel through which energy moves between dimensions. 4 ones placed in the formation of 1111 create a kind of geometric gateway, a visual representation of two worlds touching, the seen and the unseen, the self you have been, and the self that is being called forward. This is not metaphor for the sake of beauty. This is the language that has been used across thousands of years and dozens of traditions to describe the same experience you are having right now. The experience of standing between, of not quite being where you were and not yet being where you are going, of feeling the ground shift beneath the ordinary surface of daily life. 11 does not arrive to tell you everything is fine. It arrives to tell you that everything is in motion, that the architecture of your life is being restructured at a level your eyes cannot access but your soul can feel, and that the discomfort of standing in a doorway, belonging fully to neither side, is not a problem to be solved. It is the exact position from which transformation becomes possible. You are not between two places by accident. You are placed there by design. Why pain opens the portal. There is a question that no one asks when things are going well. It does not occur to us to ask it when we are comfortable, when life is moving in the direction we intended, when the future feels like a continuation of something familiar and safe. The question only surfaces when the ground gives way, when the certainty dissolves, when we are left holding something we did not choose and cannot put down. The question is, why is this happening to me? And the spiritual traditions that have mapped the inner landscape of the human soul across millennia do not answer that question the way we want them to. They do not offer the clean causality our minds crave. Instead, they offer something stranger and more unsettling. The suggestion that the pain itself is a mechanism, that it is not happening to you, it is happening for you, and more specifically, through you. Carl Jung spent decades studying the moments when the inner world and the outer world seemed to speak the same language simultaneously. He called these moments synchronicities, meaningful coincidences that could not be explained by cause and effect alone, but that carried an undeniable sense of significance. And what he observed consistently was that synchronicities do not cluster around peaceful periods. They cluster around crisis, around transition, around the moments when the psyche is under enough pressure that the ordinary boundaries between the conscious mind and something deeper begin to thin. Pain thins those boundaries. This is not poetic license. This is a structural reality of consciousness. When life is predictable and controlled, the mind operates on the surface, categorizing, planning, managing, maintaining. But when something ruptures that surface, the mind is forced downward, into layers it does not normally visit, into the part of you that does not think in logic but in image, in symbol, in felt sense, into the part of you that has always known more than your waking self admits. That is the part of you that sees 11:11 and does not dismiss it. Your pain has opened a door in you that comfort had kept closed, and through that door, perception flows in both directions. You become capable of receiving signals that were always being sent, but that the noise of ordinary life drowned out completely. The difficult season is not a punishment interrupting your path. It is a recalibration of your entire perceptual system, a forced expansion of what you are able to notice, to feel, to understand. Every tradition that has ever taken the inner life seriously has named this process: the dark night of the soul in Christian mysticism, the descent of Inanna into the underworld in Sumerian tradition, the crucible in alchemical philosophy, where base material is subjected to fire not to destroy it, but to purify it into something that could not have been reached any other way. These are not stories about suffering for its own sake. They are maps of a process, a real, documented, repeatable process through which the soul arrives at capacities it could not have developed in comfort. The portal is not somewhere you travel to. It is something that opens inside you. And it opens most reliably when the life you thought you were living stops being available in the form you recognized. You are not broken. You are open. And something is moving through that opening right now. Something that has been trying to reach this particular depth of you for longer than this difficult season has been going on. The pain was the door, and the door was always going to open. The illusion of control and the intelligence behind chaos. Tell me if this is familiar. You wake up and the first thing your mind does is reach. It reaches for the variables. It runs through the list of what is unresolved, what is uncertain, what needs to be managed or planned or braced for. It does this before you have fully crossed the border from sleep into waking. And the energy that this reaching requires, before the day has even begun, is enormous. Quietly exhausting in a way that is difficult to explain to anyone who does not live inside the same machinery. This is what the pursuit of control actually costs. And here is what makes it so difficult to release. It works. Sometimes. Enough times to feel like the right strategy. Enough times to make the mind believe that if it just thinks hard enough, plans carefully enough, anticipates thoroughly enough, the uncertainty can be reduced to a manageable quantity. The anxiety is actually a form of preparation, the mind tells you. The worry is productive. The constant scanning is protection. But there is something the mind cannot account for. There is an order operating beneath the surface of events that does not respond to the management strategies of the conscious self. The ancient Hermetic principle of correspondence, as above, so below, as within, so without, suggests that what appears as chaos at the level of visible circumstances is often precision at the level of pattern, that the disruption you are living through is not randomness that needs to be controlled. It is intelligence that needs to be recognized. The Stoic philosophers made a distinction that has survived 2,000 years because it maps something permanently true about the human condition. There are things within your control, your perceptions, your responses, the orientation of your inner life, and there are things outside your control, outcomes, other people, timing, circumstances, the direction the world decides to move, and the suffering they observed with the precision of surgeons comes almost entirely from the confusion between these two categories, from the energy spent trying to govern what was never yours to govern. 11:11. Appearing in the middle of your chaos is not the universe telling you to try harder. It is not an encouragement to refine your strategy, tighten your grip, or find a better way to force the outcome you want. It is something closer to the opposite of all that. It is a signal that the intelligence you have been trying to substitute with your own planning is already present, already working, already arranging things at a level of precision you cannot access from your current vantage point. What looks like falling apart from the inside very often looks like being rearranged from above. The pieces that seem to be scattering are not lost. They are being repositioned. The structure that appears to be collapsing was built on a foundation that was always temporary. And the collapse is not the end of something, but the clearing of space for something that actually holds. Your control was never what was keeping things together, and releasing the illusion of it is not surrender in the sense of defeat. It is surrender in the sense of a river releasing the bank it has been pressing against, finally allowed to move in the direction it was always meant to flow. The chaos has intelligence, the timing has purpose. And the number appearing in the middle of your most uncontrolled moments is the universe's quiet, insistent way of saying, I see what you cannot. Trust what you feel but cannot yet explain. The arrangement happening beneath the surface of this difficulty is not working against you. It never was. The soul contract you forgot you signed. There is a version of your life that was mapped before you arrived in it. Not in the sense of rigid predetermination, not in the sense of a script with no room for choice, but in the sense of a set of agreements, of intentions, of specific encounters and crossroads that the soul, in its pre-incarnation wisdom, chose as the terrain through which it would grow. Ancient traditions call these soul contracts, and while the rational mind is quick to dismiss the concept, there is something in the experience of certain moments, certain losses, certain arrivals, certain encounters that change everything, that feels less like accident and more like appointment. You have felt this. The relationship that ended in a way that broke you open and ultimately freed you from a version of yourself you had outgrown. The opportunity that collapsed and redirected you towards something you would never have chosen on your own. But that turned out to be the most aligned thing you have ever done. The conversation that happened by apparent chance, and that rearranged something fundamental inside you. These moments do not feel like coincidence from the inside. They feel like recognition. Like something you knew was coming, even if you did not know you knew. Soul contracts are not punishments. They are not arbitrary suffering assigned by an indifferent universe. They are the specific experiences that the soul, at the level of its deepest intelligence, understood were necessary for the development it came here to accomplish. The grief that teaches compassion no other experience could have produced. The failure that dismantles the false self so the true one has room to emerge. The loss that breaks the attachment to what was keeping the soul small. The difficult period you are living through right now, the one during which 1111 has been appearing with increasing frequency, is not a deviation from your path. It is an activation point on it. A node in the map that was always there, always coming, always part of the design the soul agreed to before memory of the agreement was placed behind the veil of ordinary consciousness. 1111. Appearing now is a timestamp. A cosmic marker indicating that you are precisely on schedule, not in the sense of the schedule your human self would have chosen, but in the sense of the one your soul already understood. The number is not consolation. It is confirmation. It is the universe's way of saying, you are not off course. You are not being punished. You are not living through randomness with no meaning and no direction. You are living through the chapter your soul came here specifically to live. That does not make it painless. It does not make the grief smaller or the uncertainty easier to hold. But it changes the relationship between you and what you are experiencing. It moves you from the position of someone to whom things are happening, to the position of someone who is, at some level in some way, even in the middle of not understanding, participating, engaged, present in a process that was never chaos. The contract was never forgotten by the part of you that matters most, only by the part that was too frightened to remember. What you are being asked to release. This is the chapter no one wants to arrive at, because everything before this point has been about understanding, and understanding feels safe. Understanding keeps a comfortable distance between you and the thing being understood. You can nod at insight, appreciate a reframe, Feel the warmth of a new perspective settling over a difficult situation, and none of that asks you to actually let go of anything. But we have arrived at the place where something must be released. Look at the symbol again. Two ones. Standing parallel. Neither leaning into the other, neither collapsing toward the other, neither reaching to close the space between them. They stand upright, separate, whole in themselves, with the threshold between them held open by their very refusal to merge. This is the geometry of what you are being asked to become. Not collapsed, not grasping. Upright, present. Able to hold the tension of uncertainty without bending it into false resolution. What are you holding that is no longer yours to hold? There is an outcome you have been gripping. You know which one. The specific future you decided was the right one, the only acceptable one, the one without which you are not sure how to orient yourself. You have been carrying this future in your hands like something fragile, terrified that if you release your grip for a single moment, it will shatter on the floor and leave you with nothing. And the exhaustion of this carrying, the constant vigilance of it, has become so familiar you have stopped recognizing it as a choice. It is a choice. There is a version of someone you have been trying to maintain, a self-image, a role, an identity, built around being the person who manages, who holds it together, who does not fall apart in the face of what is falling apart. And this version of you has served a purpose. It got you through things, but it is also quietly the thing standing between you and the transformation that is waiting on the other side of this difficult season. There is a person you have been waiting for to change, to return, to become what you needed them to be, and the waiting has been its own kind of prison, not because the longing is wrong, but because the tethering of your peace to their choices has left you with no peace at all. The ancient Hermetic principle of mentalism teaches that reality begins in the mind, that the world we experience is first constructed in the quality of our inner attention. To release what you are clinging to is not to lose it. It is to stop constructing the version of reality in which your peace is perpetually one step beyond your reach. 1111 is two pillars, two upright ones. The message encoded in the very structure of the number is this: you can stand without leaning on what you cannot control. You can stand in the space between what was and what is coming, without collapsing the threshold by forcing an outcome. You can be upright and present and whole, even now, especially now. Release is not loss. It is the act of making room for what the universe has already been preparing in the space just beyond your grip, since before this difficult chapter began. Alignment is not a destination. Somewhere along the way, a story entered the spiritual conversation that has caused more quiet suffering than almost any other. It is the story that alignment is a place you arrive at, that it is a state of permanent peace, sustained clarity, unbroken flow, and that the turbulence you are currently experiencing is evidence that you have not yet reached it, or that you have somehow lost it, or that you are doing something spiritually wrong. This story is not true, and it is worth sitting with how much energy you have spent trying to achieve a stillness that was never meant to be permanent. Alignment is not a destination. It is a direction. It is the orientation of the soul in any given moment. The degree to which the choices you are making, the thoughts you are holding, the way you are relating to your own experience, are pointing toward your deepest truth rather than away from it. It is not the absence of difficulty. It is the presence of something beneath the difficulty that does not move. A center, a knowing, a quiet that exists not because everything around it is calm, but because it has learned to be what it is regardless of what everything around it is doing. 1111 is not a reward for having achieved this orientation. It is a recalibration signal sent to a soul that has drifted from it. And drifting is not failure. Drifting is what happens when human beings live human lives, when the noise of what needs to be managed becomes louder than the signal of what is actually true. When fear speaks more insistently than wisdom, when the urgency of the external world overrides the intelligence of the internal one, the number appears when the drift has gone far enough that the soul needs a concrete, unmistakable interruption, something that bypasses the reasoning mind entirely and speaks directly to the part of you that has not forgotten what it knows. That half second of stillness when you see it, that is not random. That is the recalibration happening in real time. The soul recognizing its own signal, momentarily returning to its own center before the noise resumes. The question is what you do with that moment. You can let it pass. You can nod at it and return to the same quality of attention you were maintaining before. Or you can treat it as the invitation it is. An invitation to ask, honestly and without judgment, in what direction your inner life is currently oriented. Not what are you doing, but what are you becoming in the way you are choosing to move through this. Are you constructing fear or cultivating trust? Are you rehearsing loss or practicing presence? Are you waiting for circumstances to change before you allow yourself peace, or are you choosing peace as the ground from which you meet your circumstances? Alignment returns not because everything resolves. It returns because the soul makes the sovereign choice to reorient. Again and again, as many times as necessary, without shame for the drifting, without ceremony for the return. The number is not telling you that you have failed to be spiritual enough. It is telling you that you are being called back to yourself, that the center is still there, exactly where you left it, waiting without judgment for the moment you choose to return. You have never been as far from alignment as the fear has told you. The signal would not reach you if you were. The moment before the turning point. There is something almost unbearable about the moment just before everything changes. Not because it is the worst moment, though it often feels that way, but because it is the most invisible. The moment before the turning point carries no announcement of itself. It does not arrive with the certainty that relief is coming. It arrives looking exactly like every other difficult moment that came before it, except somehow heavier, somehow more silent, somehow carrying a quality of pressure that feels less like continuation and more like a wall. You may be in that moment right now. In the archetypal language that has mapped the inner life of humanity across every culture that has ever existed, this moment has many names. The dark night of the soul, the winter before the thaw, the depth of the descent before the return. The chrysalis, which is not a place of beautiful transformation but a place of complete dissolution, where the caterpillar does not become the butterfly so much as it ceases entirely to be a caterpillar, liquefying in the darkness before the new form assembles itself from what remains. Dissolution feels like destruction. From the inside, there is no difference, but there is a pattern that mystics, depth psychologists, and anyone who has moved through genuine transformation will confirm with quiet certainty. The most intense sightings of 1111, the most insistent repetition of the signal, the most undeniable accumulation of synchronicities, these do not peak at the beginning of a difficult period. They peak at its threshold, at the moment just before the shift, as if the universe, in its precision, sends the strongest signal precisely when the soul needs it most and when the turning point is closest. If you are seeing 1111 with an intensity and frequency that feels almost overwhelming right now, if the signs are arriving with a persistence that makes them impossible to dismiss, consider the possibility that you are not at the middle of this difficult chapter. Consider that you may be at its end. Not the end that arrives with obvious relief, not the end that announces itself with clarity, the end that feels from inside the chrysalis indistinguishable from continuation, but that carries, if you become very still and honest with yourself, a quality of approaching completion, a sense, however faint, that something is about to give, that the pressure has reached its maximum, that the wall you have been pressing against may not be a wall at all, but a door that swings open from the other side. Every tradition that has ever mapped the soul's journey through darkness has said the same thing in different languages. You do not exit the dark night by turning back. You exit it by moving through the deepest point of it without looking away. By being fully present to the difficulty rather than using every available strategy to minimize it, escape it, or bypass it. By trusting, without evidence, without certainty, without the comfort of knowing the outcome, that what is dissolving was always meant to dissolve, and that what assembles itself in the aftermath will be more true, more aligned, more essentially you than what came before. The heaviness you are carrying right now, is not proof that nothing is changing. It may be the exact weight of the moment before everything does. Reading the language of the universe. 11:11 was a beginning, not a conclusion. It was the sign that woke you up to the fact that a conversation was happening. But the conversation itself is far broader and has been going on far longer than you may have realized. The universe does not have a single word. It has a language. And like any language, it is built from a vocabulary that is both universal and deeply personal. There are symbols and patterns that carry meaning across all cultures and all times. Numbers, recurring images, animals that appear with strange insistence, songs that play at the precise moment they are needed, sentences overheard in passing that answer the question you had not yet finished asking. And then there is the layer of the language that belongs specifically to you. The signs that carry meaning not because any tradition encoded them, but because your own history, your own inner life, your own particular relationship with the invisible has made them yours. You already have a sign system. You have had it for longer than you have acknowledged it. Think of the moments in your life when something external arrived with a timing so precise it stopped you. When you thought of someone and they called. When you asked for a sign, not seriously, not with full belief, but in the half-surrender of someone who has run out of other options, and something arrived. When a word, an image, a sensation carried a weight that your reasoning mind could not account for but your body registered immediately as significant. These moments are not coincidences that have been happening to a mind that is too credulous. They are data points in a language you are capable of learning to read fluently. The ancient principle of correspondence, which forms the foundational architecture of Hermetic philosophy, teaches that nothing in the universe is isolated, that everything is connected by invisible threads of meaning that run through the seen and the unseen simultaneously, that the outer world is always in some sense a reflection of the inner one, and that by paying attention to what the outer world is offering, the soul learns something about what is alive and moving in the inner one. Reading the language of the universe is not about finding confirmation for what you already want to believe. It is not about selecting the signs that feel good and ignoring the ones that challenge you. It is about developing a quality of attention that is both open and discerning, receptive without being passive, curious without being desperate. It begins with trust. Trust in your own perception as a valid instrument of knowledge. The culture of rationalism has spent centuries telling you that inner knowing is unreliable, that felt sense is inferior to measurable data, that the experiences you cannot prove are the ones you should discard. And the result of this training is a self that has learned to doubt its own most intimate intelligence, to dismiss what it knows before anyone else has a chance to dismiss it first. 11:11 arrived, and something in you recognized it. That recognition, that half-second before the doubt moved in, was your perception functioning at full capacity. Trust that more than you have been allowing yourself to. Build on it. Follow it. Let it lead you back into a relationship with the invisible dimension of your own life that you may have been taught to abandon. The universe has always been speaking. You are only now learning that you have always been fluent. You were always meant to receive this. We began with a clock, with a number, with a moment of looking up and finding something looking back. And now, having traveled through everything this video has moved through together, through the architecture of the sign, through the sacred function of pain, through the illusion of control and the reality of soul contracts, through the practice of release and the nature of alignment, through the darkest point before the threshold and the language that has always been available to you, we arrive here. At the place where the open loop closes, not with an explanation, with a recognition. You did not find this video. This video found you, and the distinction matters more than it might seem, because finding implies searching, implies that you went looking for something you did not have. But being found implies that something was already in motion on your behalf before you made any conscious effort to reach for it. That the convergence of this moment, you, here now having watched to this point, was not the result of an algorithm or a recommendation or a random click. It was the result of alignment. The difficult season you have been moving through has not been happening to a passive self waiting for relief. It has been happening to a soul in the process of becoming something it could not have become any other way. The 1111 you kept seeing was not a promise that the difficulty would end. It was a confirmation that the difficulty had purpose, that you were seen, that the process was real, that the transformation being asked of you was not punishment, but initiation. And now you are here, having received the message, and something in you. If you have been truly present through this, if you have let these words land rather than simply pass through, has already shifted. Not because you have resolved anything external. Not because your circumstances have changed in the time it has taken to watch this, but because perception, once expanded, does not return to its previous dimensions. Because a soul that has been reminded of what it already knows cannot honestly claim to have forgotten again. Peace is not waiting for you on the other side of what you are afraid of. It is not living in the future where things are finally resolved, finally certain, finally under control. It is here, in the soul's conscious choice made in this moment, to trust the design it cannot fully see, to stand upright in the threshold between what was and what is coming, to release the grip, to read the signs, to accept that the universe's timing is more precise than the timeline your fear has been constructing. You were always going to arrive at this moment. The path that brought you here, the losses, the confusion, the sleepless nights, the weight of the unresolved, was not a detour. It was the route. 1111 was never asking you to understand everything. It was asking you to trust something. And the fact that you are still here, at the end of this, having carried every chapter of this message with you, that is not coincidence. That is a soul answering its own signal. You were always meant to receive this, and now that you have, nothing about how you move forward needs to be the same.